Professor Rajlakshmi Sriram is a retired professor of the Human Development and Family Studies, MS University, Baroda. In 1972, Child Development and Family Relations, and she studied in the University of Bangalore. Her areas of interest are family studies, indigenization of curriculum, teaching learning resources, research methodology, family violence, and training in family counseling, women's studies, training for women and community development, women in development and preventive. She has had 23 years of research and teaching and applied work experience. She has a latest book that has been edited by her, that is Fathering in India, Images and Realities, just about a month ago, if I am not mistaken. Just a little idea about this book. This book covers the underexplored subject of fathering in India. It delves into the shared aspirations of men in India to nurture their children in sensitively attuned ways within the culturally prescriptive context that governs men's roles as providers and caregivers. This work is based on over 2 decades of intensive research in India on how different groups construct and experience fatherhood and fathering under changing circumstances. It unmasks the heterogeneity that exists within fathering in India through conversations with fathers across diverse contexts in privileged economic situations and those in difficult home and family circumstances. Now I invite Professor Rajlakshmi Sriram to introduce the book on marriage and divorce in India.
Thank you, Dr. Lansi Lobo, for the privilege of being here today to introduce the book. And my biggest pranams to all the 3 stalwarts who are on stage and who are off stage. Professor A.M. Shah, who's been one of my lenses to the field of sociological and anthropological literature when I was young, and when he visited the department as a visiting professor and I was a young faculty, and he opened my many blinders and showed ways forward. Thank you, sir. And Professor Sitanshu Mehta, who was the kindest Gujarati examiner I have seen when I had to give the university Gujarati test during my maternity leave. I could not find another kinder person who could understand and as well as be so supportive. Of course, my determination to learn Gujarati, he was one of my motivators. And Professor Bhikhu Parikh, whom I have always admired and tried not to miss any of his talks in the university. And just a little correction, I've had a long career of about more than 35 years in the university and retired a couple of years ago and held the status of emeritus for some time before, when I was writing this book. This is an extremely pleasant duty to introduce this other book, which is Marriage and Divorce in India, Concepts and Practices. And I think it's a worthwhile, very worthwhile contribution to the academic and the sociological, anthropological literature in India. Like most of us know, family is an important part of most people's lives, and each one of us has some experience, some of it, experience of family life in our own ways. Some of it is universal, and much of it is very personalized and varied according to our own context. The variations are enormous in a diverse country like India, and very difficult to capture. Still, everyone has a very strong opinion about how family life is changing based on their own experience of family and observation of a limited realm of realities. However, when this forms part of an academic discourse, we have very little evidence-based or research-based understanding. Therefore, we can explain to the younger generation or students or develop a very reflective understanding of family life in a large country like India. So at this juncture, this book is a very interesting volume and a much needed one for developing a holistic understanding of marriage and divorce in a contemporary context. The chapters in this volume are covered in three major parts. One says, which is history and heritage. And we all understand the history and heritage, but this history and heritage is getting transformed and playing out in different ways in today's globalized socioeconomic structure, where tradition and modernity, the famous statement is, India is carrying many, not one past, but many pasts, and the past is constantly present in the present. And we construct our realities, cultural realities, in many different ways, integrating the past and the present in very unique ways. So this is a very classic example. Some chapters in this are a very classic example of this. In this section, there are about 7 chapters, and the 2 stalwarts, one Professor A.M. Shah and the other is Professor Tulsi Patel from Delhi, who do a background introduction job in an excellent manner. Professor Shah, in his chapter on marriage and divorce in India, a framework of analysis, provides a very clear picture of the large canvas of diversity that needs to be understood. We have many fixed notions about marriage in India, which are predominantly drawn from the patriarchal ideology or a traditional society. Professor Shah clearly points out how all the practices vary based on class, caste, region, tradition, or the way cultures are constructed, and the enormous errors we make in making generalizations and inferences. So it raises a very interesting question in the reader's minds. Can we assume universality in the institution of marriage, which is considered almost universal and mandatory? Hence, it rightly emphasizes understanding emerging forms based on field realities. That is an ongoing endeavor in the social science discipline, and we need to continue that. Similarly, the chapter on what we know about divorce in India provides the much needed wide spectrum view on all aspects of divorce and its varied manifestation in India, integrating social and anthropological research literature. This chapter begins by undoing some myths about the universality and sacramentality of marriage, contrasts the book view of marriage with the field view, highlighting some feminist views also. It helps to understand causes and consequences of divorce, outlines how expectations in marriage are connected to divorce, and highlights the dynamics of divorce. Noteworthy is the part on camouflaging marital disruption by living together. Tulsi Patel brings many live examples of women's situation of divorce. Such live examples are also elaborated by Joshi and Kapadia in their chapter on women's experiences of divorce, which unfold fewer known realities of women's lives who have experienced divorce in recent times. Also, the chapters on divorce in Vankar community by Dr. Lobo and Kanchan Bharti adds new dimensions to understanding divorce. And Zakia Soman's paper focuses on legal justice to Muslim women when they are opt for divorce. All these chapters in section 1 highlight realities of divorce in present Indian society and its effects on individuals and families. There are 2 chapters which further provide new ideas and perspectives on some themes which we are already debating. One is related to age at marriage and the other is related to mixed marriages. Does early age of marriage persist in India? Demographic perspectives is a chapter which really throws light on what's happening in Kerala and how demographic and social factors are playing out in today's market economy. It is changing what they call the market squeeze, and other things are changing the entire dynamics. And also a major thing is that we can't still believe that early marriages are the norm in India, because the marriage age is changing and it is leading to mixed marriages and all kinds of repercussions. I don't want to tell the details, you read it and you will come to know. Then the second question it raises is, are we really broad-minded when it comes to marriages beyond caste, region and religion? On the one hand, we say that mixed marriages are becoming very popular, are individuals having more freedom, but Dr. Vibhuti Patel analyzes and presents very interesting facts on all dimensions of mixed marriage, including the Kap Panchayat and how even people are killed because because of social rejection and elopement in marriages. What is happening on that scene in some states is an interesting chapter. The third dimension comes when we talk of new forms of live-in relationship sexuality, which are alternative forms of marriage. There's one chapter on psychological acceptance of live-in relations, a new norm of family life, but is it getting legal acceptance or are there legal complications? There are other new forms of marriage out of the shackle of patriarchy that are emerging through cinema. Also indicates some changing notions in youth, which is analyzed in detail, of the new wave cinema, which talks of, for example, Queen. I'm just giving you one, where the woman goes away on her own, and more details about this. There's another article on feminism and marriage, a dichotomy or synthesis, is a much needed debate, both at individual and societal level, to come to terms with the changing social order that ensures equality and independence to women, with which many times conflicts with the traditional notions of marital and family roles. Bringing this intra-individual debate into the public sphere through this article is a bold and much needed step. Similarly, the article on compulsory heterosexuality, marriage and sexual discontent throws up issues that we need to see with newer lenses. Though in theory we accept diversity, in practice we impose strong personal views on norms that guide both law and practice, and this article is a reflection of the same. Much is talked about how IPC 498A, which is criminality in dowry, is misused. But very systematic documentation is done by Komal Vik. This article provides insights into the theme and what we need to do to preserve the spirit of this law in practice, so it helps women but does not harm good men and their families. The last section is a summary of researches of emerging practices in spousal selection, which is a major value addition to understanding the dynamics of spouse selection practices. It is a testimony to emerging individual freedom within a culture of feminism. Therefore, I can say this book is a call for us to move beyond making judgments on what is right and wrong based on our narrow worldview of beliefs about marriage and family, based either on our own experience or so-called skewed notions of tradition and culture that never existed in reality. Because for time immemorial we've talked of what we think is reality in India is different from what the actual field reality is. Therefore, the need is to move towards a more fair and informed view of existing practices of marriage and sexualities, thus accepting emerging diversities and accommodating them harmoniously into the social fabric. So I can say this is a must reading for all social science discipline scholars and students. Thank you for this opportunity.